one day woke up and said, you know what, I want to explore the issue of marijuana legalization. And I had never talked about it when I was in politics, never really took a position. So I wrote that we should legalize marijuana. Well, the agriculture commissioner of Kentucky, a guy named Jamie Comer, saw that and said, Jonathan, we're trying to legalize hemp in Kentucky. Can you help us? And I didn't know the difference between hemp and marijuana, but I said, sure, why not? I did the research, really discovered.
Hey guys, it's Mandi with Global Hemp Association. I wanted to say thank you so much for joining. I'm excited about the opportunity to build a relationship and connect this supply chain. I mean, after all, that's why we started the association. Our association was built on the foundation of connecting supply chain, building relationships, and helping you grow your business. Anyone from farmers, manufacturers, and distributors, people that are passionate about the supply chain, and those creating products selling into biofuels, plastics, textiles, construction, and building materials. Hello, everyone. Welcome. I'm really excited about our guest today. I'm in a new background, a new audience, but I got to show you this cool room. This is in my parents' living room. But I'm here with Jonathan Miller today. Jonathan, I'll let you give you a real quick intro about kind of how you got into this. What is your current role? Where do you see things going? And then we'll kind of dive into some of the ins and outs of what you're specifically working on. But thank you very much for joining me.
No, it's great to be with you. So I'm a recovering politician. I was the state treasurer of Kentucky for 2 terms. I ran for governor, and the people of Kentucky overwhelmingly decided that I should be in the private sector. So I've been practicing law for about 11 years now. About 8 or 9 years ago, I just had a thought that I was going to write an article about cannabis reform. I'd been writing for magazines like the Daily Beast and the Huffington Post, and I just one day woke up and said, you know what, I want to explore the issue of marijuana legalization. And I had never talked about it when I was in politics, never really took a position. So I wrote that we should legalize marijuana. Well, the agriculture commissioner of Kentucky, a guy named Jamie Comer, saw that and said, Jonathan, we're trying to legalize hemp in Kentucky. Can you help us? And I didn't know the difference between hemp and marijuana, but I said, sure, why not? I did the research, really discovered all of the different applications for it, and got pretty excited about it. And we were able to get a bill passed in Kentucky to legalize hemp. Excuse me. Our senior senator, Mitch McConnell, took notice. And we started to work with him on what ultimately became the 2014 Farm Bill, which created the pilot programs that allowed for hemp to be grown in the country for the first time in nearly a century. And about that time, we realized we needed to have an organization to provide advocacy on behalf of this new industry. And so we created what ultimately became the U.S. Hemp Roundtable. It started off with 4 guys, and they were guys from Kentucky in my basement. And we had a $20,000 budget. We now have grown to over 100 different companies and organizations, very diverse. Half of our board is either female or a person of color. We have almost a $2 million budget, and we are deeply engaged in all the activities of the organization. Our biggest accomplishment was the 2018 Farm Bill, which, again, working with Senator McConnell and folks like Senator Wyden and others, provided for complete legalization of hemp. And now we're focused both on efforts on the state level, but on the federal level, really trying to deal with the issue of CBD and other hemp extracts. The FDA's opposition to them has caused great harm to the industry, and we are promoting legislation which would provide for a clear legal pathway for the sale of CBD, and also a bunch of sustainability work we're doing on the fiber side. But I'll stop there and let you see what you'd like me to talk about.
Okay, so I'm actually curious about what it looks like and what the differences are or the challenges
what the different challenges are between the fiber and the CBD industry. And then I'd love to hear what specific changes you're working on within that CBD industry, within the vertical, I guess.
So with CBD, we are really focused both at the state and federal level of trying to get regulatory clarity so that the cloud is lifted on product sales, so that big box stores will start to carry these products, so that big food companies will add CBD to their peanut butter and cola and candy bars. And our number one objective is on the federal level, where we have a bill, two bills, one in the House, one in the Senate, but the one that's really moving is in the House. It's HR 841. It would create a legal pathway for the sale of CBD as a dietary supplement and regulate it as a dietary supplement. We have 33 co-sponsors, 21 Democrats and 12 Republicans. And for those of you that follow politics, you know that that's very rare to have that kind of bipartisanship, but it just demonstrates the power of the issue. And we're told we're going to have a hearing in the next few weeks before the House Energy and Commerce Committee. And so we're hopeful to see some movement on the bill either at the end of this year or beginning of next year.
That's impressive. Just listening and being involved in all of the conversations this year, that's been the number one request, is regulation around the CBD verticals and industry themselves. Okay, so talk to me a little bit about Delta-8. What's your guys' position, or where do you suppose this market is going? And I just want to touch on this because it's a very small piece of what we usually talk about, but it's definitely a hot topic.
Yeah, it's really created a big challenge for the industry. I can sympathize with farmers who've been struggling because of the lack of regulatory clarity on CBD. They've got their biomass that they can't sell until we get the FDA behind us, and they've found this route to convert CBD into Delta-8. We don't have anything against Delta-8 per se. It is one of the many cannabinoids that may have some beneficial use, but we have a real challenge with products that are intoxicating and potentially dangerous being marketed as hemp. And so our position is that we need two different lanes. One, a hemp lane, which would be for non-intoxicating products, could be sold as dietary supplements and food and beverage additives. And the other intoxicating lane, which would include marijuana and Delta-8 and Delta-10 and you name it, that would only be sold to adults, would have particular safety standards, and would be regulated as an intoxicating compound, not as a dietary supplement. So we've seen states already move in this direction. New York, Oregon, Michigan, and now California. I think we're going to see a lot of more states do it, but again, we've got to get some more clarity and consistency at the federal level, and that's what we'll be working on.
Awesome. I was just going to ask you that next question: is what states are really leading the charge in this? You named a couple outside of just the D8. Who's really taking charge, or who should we be paying attention to as a structure and a solid structure for this?
Well, California is the state of the art. It's the most recent one. We were really excited to see AB 45 pass there a few weeks ago. And for 3.5 years, there had been threats and sometimes actions taken against sales of CBD, both ingestible and in topical form. And so the era of prohibition in California is over. Now it is completely legal, and there is a regulatory regime that will be developed. We've got a lot of work to do on that in California, but are looking forward to working with the agency to make that happen. Michigan's got a really good law that just came into play a couple of months ago. And some of the more established programs, Kentucky, Florida, New York, Colorado, Texas, these are all states that have been doing this for what we would consider a long time, which is just 2 or 3 years in the hemp space. But that's the good news, that so many states are moving this direction. The bad news is that every state's got a different regime, and so it's causing confusion for customers. When every state has a different label requirement, then just think about what it's like to be a company trying to sell products in different states. You got a tiny label to begin with, and having to put all the different state labels on a product are really difficult. So that's, again, another reason why we need to get 841 passed in the House to get the FDA to provide some consistency.
Yeah, insight overall, right? I was just in actually a shop the other day speaking about this and just the inconsistency from state to state on what just the knowledge and the people behind the counter selling the product. And I think until that overall regulatory statute changes or opportunity changes, we definitely can't expect it to change down for our consumers. And that's where it gets a little bit tricky is what do they know and where do they go to get it? So talk to me about some of the initiatives, and growth of the U.S. Hemp Roundtable. Where do you guys see yourself really heading? Obviously on the regulatory side that you just mentioned, but how do people get involved and what are people within the organization working on?
Well, in addition to all this work at the state level and on CBD at the federal level, we've really started to plant our flag in the ground about sustainability. This is a huge priority of the Biden administration, and agricultural sustainability is something that has become a real focus, bipartisan in Congress. The great thing about hemp is that, it helps remediate the soil. It uses a whole lot less water than other similar crops, and hemp products are biodegradable and don't clog up landfills. And so we believe that hemp really fits into the Biden administration's and Congress's efforts to promote agricultural sustainability. And so we are now working on some efforts to try to develop the infrastructure of a sustainable hemp fiber industry. And we'll look forward to making those progress, making those announcements in the weeks and months ahead. Another big initiative of ours is our focus on minority empowerment. The hemp industry, the overall cannabis industry has a very sorry history when we're talking about people of color. Most people know on the marijuana side that a hugely disproportionate number of arrests and enforcement actions have been taken against people of color for marijuana use. On the hemp side, it's got a bad story as well. Where I'm in Kentucky, the history of hemp is one that was managed by enslaved Americans. And people argue that the reason why we had slavery in Kentucky was because of hemp. And so we want to redress that, but we also want to empower farmers of color and minority-owned businesses. And so we have really been engaged closely with the Minority Cannabis Business Council and other groups to promote efforts to provide for empowerment and for racial justice and equity.
Awesome. I was taken back, and of course, this is just something that's come to I don't know if I want to call myself naive or undereducated, but I was just very underaware at the history of the cannabis and the minority, right? And the link to even the Marijuana Tax Act, right? So where do you see this really being opportunity, and what role will you guys have? And maybe you've already answered this, but in that actual development, how do we bring more minority farmers in? Or from the top down, what does that look like?
Yeah, so we've got a lot of remediation to do. One thing that we would like to change is there is right now from the 2018 Farm Bill a ban on convicted felons from growing hemp. And again, a disproportionate number of folks that have been arrested in the war on drugs have been people of color. And so that's something that we'd like to see repealed. We supported very strongly a congressional effort to invest $4 billion into farmers of color at the USDA, and that is now being continued to expanded, and those dollars are getting out. But one thing we're looking at specifically as well, and we'll be developing a plan, is we'd like to make some of our HBCUs, historically black colleges and universities, to be centers of excellence for hemp. And this is legislation that we're going to be supporting in the coming weeks as well. So it's just, we're looking for creative ideas. And if any of your viewers have them, this is just a big priority of ours and something that we want to model and encourage the industry to engage in.
I'd love to have a conversation with you about this further. This is something that comes up. A lot of our members talk about ways that they can get more minority farmers involved on smaller scale. And I really believe hemp is that opportunity to get them back into farming and still consider some profitability without having to, own or go out and purchase a massive amount of land. And so on the big ag side, this is really a great stepping stone into, or to get them back into the industry. So I'm really excited about that as well. So tell me a little bit about what other topics, Jonathan? What else are we working on? What else should we talk about here? Sustainability. Sustainability is a huge one in the Biden Act. Talk to me about funds or ways maybe that people can get engaged and get access to some of the USDA funds you mentioned.
Well, so there are already a lot of USDA funds that are made available, but there could be considerably more. Your viewers are probably following, at least, if not too closely, at least from a distance, what's the debate going on in Congress about the infrastructure bill and the reconciliation bill. Well, the reconciliation bill, which could be anywhere from $2 to $3 trillion, is going to have billions more dollars that it's going to be dedicated to agricultural sustainability. And so our goal right now is to try to develop a good set of standards and practices for hemp fiber. There needs to be consistency. We need to make sure there's no greenwashing. That is that's when companies say they're being sustainable, but they really aren't. So we need to have objective ways of judging that. But we've been engaged in a lot of meetings with the USDA, with rural development at USDA, and with the White House, with folks in the climate area in the White House. So this is something that's ongoing, and we don't have anything to report yet, but there's a lot of work to do, but we're really focused on it.
It feels really good to hear you say how well connected hemp is to some of these global concerns, right? The sustainability and the climate change it's impressive to just be, I guess, reassured that hemp is at the forefront of these conversations. It's not just hemp or what we smoke or even the medicine side. It is an opportunity on rural and economic development, climate change, and minority farming, manufacturing, supply chain, all of it. That's why I got into this. When I started, I didn't know what CBD meant. I mean, right. I don't think most people did. I was really excited by what I had heard about the applications for biofuels and for biodegradable plastics. I started off, I cut my teeth in politics working for Al Gore way back in 1988 when he ran for president the first time. And then I was at the U.S. Department of Energy under the Clinton-Gore administration and worked on clean energy and climate remediation back then. And so that to me is coming back to this for hemp is really the reason why I started. That's awesome. I love that you're in the airport.
Sorry about that.
Wear your mask. And I think that's just it. When people ask me, well, if hemp is so great, then why isn't it legal? Why don't we see it everywhere? I think you just outlined some of the major pain points. Where do you think banking is going to go? How much longer before banking is going to open up?
Well, the challenge right now is that there should be nothing stopping any bank or business from engaging with hemp. The 2018 Farm Bill should have eliminated all of those concerns. The problem is there is still such ignorance out there in terms of the differences between hemp and marijuana, and there are folks also on the CBD side concerned about what the FDA has had to say. So we were able to get language inserted into the Safe Banking Act, which many of your viewers know is the bill to overall legalize cannabis banking, but we were able to get special language to provide for a safe harbor for both hemp and CBD products to ensure that not only can farmers and businesses access banking, which has become better and better, but they'd also explicitly be able to get merchant services like credit cards, which has been the real challenge. There are few and far between companies that offer those, and they're higher fees, and hopefully Safe Banking Act will pass. We had Congressman Ed Perlmutter, who leads on this in the House, at our board meeting a few weeks ago, as well as Congressman Andy Barr, who led to get the hemp language into the bill, and they are both optimistic that we're going to see some movement on that this year.
I love it. Well, I've got to get a shout out real quick to Jamie Campbell. I see you're on here in the Midwest Hemp Council. She says hello. And then somebody else just said, what about Cash App and Venmo? And those are perfect examples. My PayPal, Venmo, everything is shut down because my email says hemp in it. And I don't even touch product. And so understanding that, we get a lot of people that want to get into the industry, or people that are skeptical about the industry, that doubt what we're doing because we don't have these other common ways to transfer money, right? And it really is, like you just said, the lack of education. We've got to get education out to some of these people.
Yeah, the U.S. Hemp Roundtable is a nonprofit organization that doesn't do anything that could be even remotely considered illegal or controversial. But we've had challenges putting ads up on Facebook, and we've got connections through Facebook that when we have a problem, we can connect with them and they help fix this. But your average ordinary business does not have that kind of capability. And so, again, we've so much of this is education, and we've made so much progress the last 8 years, but still a ways to go. I joke that I went to the courthouse a few years ago and changed my name from Jonathan Miller to Jonathan Hemp is not marijuana Miller, because I tell somebody that every day. I have to. Those of us in the industry for a while kind of take for granted that we know the difference between hemp and marijuana, but still a lot that don't. And marijuana is going to be legal. Adult use cannabis will be legalized federally in all 50 states at some point. It's just a matter of time. But until that happens, it's really important for us to be able to make the arguments that, how clearly different the products are.
Okay, so if you could give any advice to the industry, right? Because I feel like we're poking the bear on a couple of things. What advice would you have that's going to help us overall to progress the industry, right? Understanding, and you said it, like the influx of CBD product or distillate that was out there that was then able to be used as a Delta-8 product, right, is a good example of, where should we be paying attention? What's your advice to these?
My number one advice is to get in touch with your elected officials, your state legislators, your governors, your attorney generals, your agriculture commissioners, and then your members of Congress. Believe it or not, there's a lot of cynicism about politics these days, but politicians care very deeply what their constituents say. I'm a recovering politician. It really mattered to me that to be responsive to folks, if only for selfish reasons, because I want them to reelect me. And so you've got a great opportunity here. Now, COVID has made it more difficult for folks to have those one-on-one meetings, but it's actually made it a lot easier to have virtual meetings. Members of Congress have a lot more time on their hands, and certainly state officials do, to get on a Zoom or get on a phone call with you. And so it is just so important that we do at the U.S. Hemp Roundtable. We've got your back at the federal level. We've got, we're on the ground. I'm on Capitol Hill. We have lobbyists in major states, and we're talking directly with members of Congress and their staffs. But it's more important that you do, because again, when I'm talking to a congressman from Virginia, he cares less what I say and more what someone who lives in his district says. So it is so important for you to do that. And we've created a way for you to do this really easily on our website. So our website is hempsupporter.com. If you go to hempsupporter.com, just type in your name, your email, and your zip code. And zip code identifies who your legislators are. We have it so that you can easily write letters of support on various issues directly to your elected officials, even if you don't know who they are. Our program is able to figure that out, prepare a message for you. We ask you to personalize it, because we don't want them to just get some canned letter. We want them to hear your personal story. But really do encourage you at a very minimum to go to hempsupporter.com, send those emails to your members of Congress, to your state officials, and then to take that next step and go meet with them. You mentioned Jamie Campbell.
Yeah.
Earlier, I don't know if she's still on, but Indiana is a great example of how folks have really engaged at the legislative level. We won our first one of our first state battles at in Indiana on CBD because of people like Jamie. Justin Swanson is with her organization as well. They went in and they met with, dozens of members of that legislature, convinced them that they weren't legalizing marijuana, and we were able to get a state-of-the-art bill. Indiana is the first state in the country to require QR codes with all the details of the products, and now dozens of states do that, and that's all because of grassroots leaders like Jamie and Justin, and we encourage everyone to take those steps to make those connections.
They've done a great job, a very good job. There was another question that just came in about investment. And I have to make a comment. I hosted an event yesterday, and more than 50% of the people at the event checked that they're looking for investment capital, right? So there's a question on here. Daryl asked about initiatives being used or initiatives being done to bring investors into this space, and understanding that a lot of the investment is holding back due to this CBD boom and bust, right? So what do you think is going on, or what do you see really moving to bring investment capital?
Yeah, when the 2018 Farm Bill passed in December of 18, there was a flood of investment that came into the space. Then the FDA started to ramp up its public commentary, and it dried up. And COVID hit, and it was 2020 was a really rough year. But we're coming out of it. We're starting to hear that a lot of the investment folks have just given up on the FDA and realize the FDA isn't going to be going after these companies, so they're more interested in getting engaged. I tell investment folks, it's only a matter of time before we get this done. So it's to your advantage to invest now. I mean, you're buying low basically, and we know that the value of these companies are going to go much higher once we get this regulatory certainty. But again, I go back to my great pitch. The best thing you can do to make sure that investment comes to space is to help us get this legislation passed, particularly HR 841 in the House, because if we can get the FDA to regulate these products, Katie, bar the door. I mean, we're going to have tremendous growth, and there's going to be a whole lot of money that's been sitting on the sidelines ready to start pouring into this industry.
Yes. Well, and we're starting to see that, when we were over at SHE and we listened to a couple of the investment groups come in and speak, that was their exact advice. Why wouldn't you be getting into this right now? This is buying low and an opportunity. But there's still a lot of reservation that it's not going to take off, right? What about Neil had a really good question on here about confusion over the seed. Sorry, there was a new comment that just came in and closed it up or hit it. Confusion over the seed and hemp fiber. Do you think that will really continue? Or you think that we're going to see less and less?
The thing is, the challenge for seed and fiber, there's two big challenges. One is, again, people don't know the difference, and they hear that CBD is illegal, and they don't realize that, first of all, CBD isn't illegal. It's just what the FDA says. But second, that doesn't apply to seed or fiber, so it shouldn't affect them at all. But the real challenge with seed and fiber is the infrastructure. We have got to invest a whole lot more money into processing and other infrastructure. We first have to develop the standards to make this all possible. And so it is a multi-step process, but it's something, again, that we're working on very diligently with the USDA and with the White House, and are really hopeful that we'll be able to start laying the groundwork for a prosperous fiber and seed industry.
And understanding each value chain, there's this said, 20 or 50,000 products that can be made. And I've had a number of people that are processing or have product this year and said, well, I went into it thinking that fiber was going to be my core product, and really the herd is, or the micronized dust is, right? And so then figuring out what does that supply chain look like based on where you're at. And I think that will definitely determine a lot of standards also. Yeah. So here's a really good question that just came in. Do you think that U.S. policies around hemp and cannabis in general affect the global political perspectives?
Yeah. The U.S. is, we're the greatest superpower on earth. We're the largest economy. And, the folks in Europe which in Asia are going to look real closely as to what happens here. I know we've had folks lobby us from European hemp organizations to make sure that U.S. law doesn't get too too afar from what they've been working on. Again, Europe's been decades ahead of us here. There's no doubt that what happens in the U.S. matters. I mean, I also, to make another point, what happened in California really matters for the rest of the country. I mean, California is not only the largest state, it's the 5th largest economy in the world. And so getting AB 45 passed was not only good for farmers and businesses in California, but it's really been a boost nationally, because everybody wants to sell products in California because that's where the most people are. And that's where and Florida's got this vibrant wellness industry already. So, California matters to the U.S., U.S. matters to the world. And so what we're doing every day has bigger impacts.
Well, I'll tell you, I think supply chain, just that pressure of supply chain has opened so many conversations to bring the manufacturing to the United States and focus, especially in the construction industry, as wood prices went through the roof. Where do you think focus is right now on global or international trade, especially for some of the companies that you're working with that really are not just U.S. companies, right?
Yeah, the focus for global trade that I'm dealing with is on the CBD and hemp extract side. It's trying to sell products into other countries. The fiber will come and will be very important, but again, until we really take more advances on the technology and the infrastructure, then it's going to be slower. But once we get that, that to me is, we're going to be selling cars with hemp paneling and hemp construction materials and you name it, all over the world. And that to me, again, is exciting from an economic standpoint, but also an environmental one.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, and I firmly believe it's going to take groups and initiatives from these nonprofits like Jamie's or the Global Hemp Association or some of these others that are really creating a bigger consumer demand, which is creating this demand for international trade and going back to the capital that comes into the industry, right? If everybody wants it, it's really easy for an investor to say, okay, we're in. So it makes it great. Somebody just had a really good question on here, and I think you maybe answered it earlier, but the HR 841 is in the Health Subcommittee review. When will it come for vote as we're coming to the final?
Right. So it is currently within the Health Subcommittee of the House Energy and Commerce Committee. Either the subcommittee or probably more likely the full committee is going to be holding a hearing on that sometime this fall. After the hearing, there's a process called markup, which there will be amendments to the bill and there'll be negotiations. The FDA will get engaged and the industry will be engaged. And, we do not expect any bill to go through regular order. And if you've seen this, if you remember Schoolhouse Rock, I'm only a bill, and going from committees to the floor and to the president's desk, that's not going to happen. What will happen is we'll get something that there is bipartisan agreement on, and we will find a way to attach it to a major piece of legislation that must pass. So this is what happened with what we call the Farm Bill. We had hemp legalization that would not have passed on its own, but Mitch McConnell got it attached to the Farm Bill. So we're going to try to put together the CBD legislation, get it all supported, and then find some must-pass bill by the end of this year or beginning of next year, attach it there, and then that will go to the president's desk for a signature.
Okay. That's great knowledge. Bill has a great question. You mentioned biofuels. Are you aware of projects in development for Build Back Better funding for R&D?
I don't know. I mean, this is why I got engaged in the space. I read some articles about it, and to date, I haven't seen any progress, at least not in the U.S. And I would love to see that. And if folks have some applications, there will certainly be dollars that will be available for that. So if anybody is working on these issues and or wants to be, let us know, because it's something I'm personally invested in, but haven't seen any progress in the area yet.
Okay, we'd love to chat. I can't believe the energy sector that has opened up or connected with us. Really, I used to think textiles or even construction and building materials, and more the biofuels, biodiesels, the energy, biochar are leading the charge on an international recognition for value, I guess. It's pretty cool. Okay, so rural and economic development. Where do you see real opportunities across the U.S. to expand the markets?
Well, the biggest agency with funding that's applicable at the USDA is rural development. There are literally billions of dollars that they have to allocate, and with a real focus on sustainability. And they're looking for projects to get behind. And so it's great to have a hemp sustainability project. It's even better to have one that's in a rural area that is particularly economically challenged. And so if you've got those opportunities, the best place to go is to your local rural development in your state, USDA Rural Development Agency, and seek that kind of funding, or go to your agriculture commissioner at the state level, the state capitol. And but that's where the real money is, and we're hoping to see more of that if these other bills pass.
That's excellent. Chris has a question on here. He's in transportation. Are you seeing any complications or needs to be addressed on the transportation side, especially as we're getting into, big volumes with big agriculture?
I mean, this used to be one of the great problems, where you would see a truckload of hemp being pulled over and people arrested for marijuana transporting. We're seeing a whole lot less of that, and Congress made clear that hemp is protected through interstate commerce. But every now and then it pops up again because of ignorance. And ultimately, there's technology being worked out that will allow for field testing of THC. And once that's all finalized, then this problem will go away. But until then, make sure when you're transporting your crops or your biomass to have the certification from the state that allows you to grow it and to transport it and show it to the police officer, whoever is pulling you over, because that's the easiest way to make sure that you're not going to get any trouble.
What are some of the key organizations that you suggest building relationships with to support the industry in whole, but more around, outside industry, like the sustainability or the biofuels or plastics? And every time I meet with anybody in the fossil fuels, it's a hard conversation. So I'm curious from you, where do we go to really penetrate those markets to gain support from existing industries?
Well, we really are starting off with the major farm organizations, and that's the National Farmers Union, the Farm Bureau, American Farm Bureau, and the National Association of State Departments of Agriculture, and they really kind of identifying ourselves with the farm side of these activities is really important as we move forward. But I can see a lot of coordination as this industry develops with folks like the auto manufacturing industry, the building material industry, and construction. And that's again, once we get to the fiber side and the infrastructure's there's going to be extraordinary opportunities to collaborate and to really come up with innovative partnerships.
It's exciting. We're hitting the pavement, not just me, but everybody on our team, and anybody that attends our meetings or part of our group is always hitting the pavements to build those relationships. And I'm always looking for outside industry leaders. And the National Ag Department, what's the name of their, it's NASDA, right?
Right. NASDA is the National Agriculture. Okay, now I've lost it. National State Departments of Agriculture, National Association of State Departments of Agriculture. So these are the elected and appointed officials in every state. And I just spoke to their convention a few weeks ago, and they really are committed to the development of this industry and are in a very powerful position to make things happen.
They've been a great supporter for us. It's been fabulous. We actually just met with one of their teammates yesterday, day before yesterday. So it was great. Okay, well, I really, really appreciate your time. There's quite a few people still watching. Are there any questions? Please let us know that you're on. Say hello. I see upwards of 20 people from my view, and I know that I can't see anybody that's on some of the other channels. And so if there are questions, feel free to chime in. Do you have anything else, any advice that you have? And
well, let me give one more organization that's important. That's the U.S. Hemp Authority.
Yes.
This is an independent organization that promotes self-regulation of the industry. So it promotes best practices, high standards, and self-regulation. And there's a third-party auditing firm, Food Chain ID, which has been deeply involved in the organic space, the non-GMO space for years. If you go through and pass a very detailed set of standards and practices that have been devised and revised by industry experts for the last 3 years, and you meet those standards through an independent audit, you're able to put a seal of certification on your product that indicates to customers that they're trustworthy and indicates to law enforcement that they're legal. And we've got several hundred products that have been certified this way, and encourage if you are a seller of products to get that seal, because right now, particularly without the FDA's engagement, there's a lot of confusion on the marketplace in terms of what products are real and what ones actually have what they say they have in them. And having the U.S. Hemp Authority seal on your products is quite valuable. And to learn more about that, our website is ushempauthority.org.
.org, right?
Yeah.
Okay. I just shared that on there. Well, and I'll be honest, without the regulations, it's very hard for me. We spend a lot of time advocating and promoting, and I talk to my family all the time about the benefits, especially as my grandparents are older, the benefits to CBD. And then they'll say, well, we bought one at Walmart and it didn't work. Or we bought one at this place and it didn't work. And so that's really hard, because here I've worked really hard to build trust. And then they went out and they're like, yeah, we don't trust you anymore. Right. And so I really like that then we can refer businesses to an organization like yours that has a list of certified or products that have been through certification. And so that's great. Awesome. Well, Shane, hello. Thank you very much for joining. And thanks everybody else for joining. Chris, Bill, Kayla. There were lots of you that joined today. Daryl, I really appreciate it. I'll let you go, Jonathan, since you're flying out here pretty soon. And I'm going to go visit my grandma, spend some more time with her. In fact, my phone was just ringing. Of course, now every time it does, it makes me anxious. And so I'm going to take off here. But I really, really appreciate it. I'd love to continue conversation and see where Global Hemp Association can really help and support. We're getting ready to launch a big consumer demand initiative and would love to collaborate with you on making sure we're buttoning up our messaging and what that looks like. And so we're working side by side instead of doing the same thing. But if there's anything else we can do, please don't hesitate to reach out. And everybody else, same thing. If you have anything else, please don't hesitate to connect on globalhempassociation.org or Hemp Hallway. And Jonathan, I'd actually like to show you our Hemp Hallway sometime. We've built a little, like a LinkedIn basically for the industry, and it's mapped out where processors are and who's who, what they're doing across the globe. And you can filter it down by topics or industry, past events and so forth. So I'll share it and send it over to you. Other than that, thank you very, very much for joining. And thanks everybody else. We will see you next week on Tuesday for our next interview. Okay.
Thanks, Mandi.
Thank you very much, Jonathan. Have a good day.